Hello, this is a sun visor holder for a Porsche 911 from 1966. The holder is made of plastic, which degraded over so many years, and I was asked to make new ones. My name is Peter, and in this video, I show how I made the model and 3D printed these holders at home on a 3D printer. The first task was to model the sun visor holder. However, the holder had a complex shape and actually no surface was flat. To obtain the shape, I decided to use photogrammetry. Specifically, I decided to use the Meshroom program. If you have never heard of photogrammetry, it is a process where by taking photos of an object from different angles, you can obtain a 3D model, a point cloud of the photographed object. I had no previous experience, so I thought I could learn something new. I took the holder and started taking photos. The first attempts didn't work out and were actually unusable. Gradually, I realized that the original holder was too glossy, and the software struggled with reflections. Therefore, it was necessary to paint the original holder with a matte color. I used regular watercolors, which could be easily washed off if needed. Another problem was that I was taking photos with my phone. The photos of the holder were sharp, but the background was not. So either I needed to remove the background from the photos or ensure that the background of the photos was also sufficiently sharp. It is also good to take photos with the same settings, which means using the Pro mode for most phones, where the phone doesn't change the camera settings based on different conditions. Whenever I tried to photograph the holder entirely from all sides, the software deemed most of the photos unusable. Therefore, I had to take separate photos of the top and bottom parts of the holder. Then I was able to obtain an acceptable representation of both the top and bottom parts. To create the top part, I used 217 photos, and for the bottom part, I used 64 photos, out of which Meshroom rejected 13 as unsuitable. Here you can see the final mesh for both the top and bottom parts. After obtaining the upper and lower mesh through photogrammetry, it was necessary to put them together and edit them to create the complete model. For this purpose, I used Blender software. I merged the acquired objects and adjusted them to match the desired dimensions of the final object. However, the resulting model was still unsatisfactory for me. Firstly, the resulting mesh was not as smooth as the original, and secondly, a piece of the original holder was missing, which naturally affected the model as well. So I used the obtained mesh as a reference and modeled a new holder based on the acquired template. In Blender, I started modeling the object from a cube and gradually achieved the result using the subdivision modifier. Creating the hole was then straightforward. Within a few tens of minutes, I had the holder model ready. In this video, I won't be describing in detail the steps I took in Meshroom or Blender. Those will be covered in separate videos. However, if there's interest, I can create them, so please write in the comments. Now that I have the model ready, theoretically, all that's left is to slice it in the slicer and print it. I need to print 2 right and 2 left holders, where the left ones are just mirrors of the right ones. As no surface is flat, I first positioned the holders in the slicer at a 45-degree angle. I chose a layer height of 0.1 mm and used organic supports in Prusa slicer. Printing 4 holders from ABS took about 5 hours at this setting. After removing the supports, I conducted a strength test, and in this setting the print was not very strong, as the holders cracked at one point. It was therefore necessary to think about how the final holder would be printed to ensure that the parts were solid. I printed the holders using 3 different methods to check their strength. Subsequently, it turned out that during assembly and use, the greatest forces act in these directions, and the holder for the shade pole must be relatively strong. Therefore, I printed all 4 holders in the position that proved to be the strongest, but on the other hand, it requires using more supports. After printing, all that was needed was to remove the supports and smooth the surface using a sanding sponge. Then, I sanded the entire holder with sandpaper with a grain size of 800. This way, the individual layers became indistinguishable and the surface was perfectly smooth. This was my first encounter with photogrammetry, and I will definitely use this approach in other projects as well. Hopefully, someone enjoyed the video. Thanks for your support, and if you'd like to know more, please write in the comments. Give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you.